Alright, hello everyone, it's Mimo, and today I have a little bit of a different video. Um, this one is involving the Toronto Maple Leafs. For those who don't know, Toronto Maple Leafs are my favorite team. Today I'm going to go over what I think my ideal off-season would be for the Maple Leafs. Obviously we're already, three, or like a month or so, 2 months into the Leafs off-season. It's a couple of weeks away from the draft as well. Um, Tampa Bay are up 3-1 on the Dallas Stars, and if they win today, that kind of means everyone in the NHL's set to, I guess, kind of go out and start making their own deals and everything, as opposed to what's already been going on. So we've all seen just a couple days ago the Hornfist trade, stuff like that. So yeah, right now I have my ideal. This isn't actually the ideal lineup right now. I'm gonna go through a couple trades, deals, and whatnot that I think could go through. And yeah, let's get right into it. So, before I started the recording, I just quickly got Dermott and Mikheyev re-signed on 1 year, $2 million contracts. I feel that's probably reasonable for both of them. Um, I do have plans with Dermott, but we'll go over that in a minute. Um, right now, Spezza is not re-signed. Clifford, I don't think will re-signed or will be re-signed. But yeah, there's a lot of questions with this roster. After seeing what happened against Columbus and just the 70 games before that, and just playoffs every year, I think this team needs a shake-up more than it's had, and I think it needs a much more well-educated shakeup, I'd say. Last year there was the big Kadri for Barry trade, which yes he was right-handed, but I feel the scouting I guess maybe could have been a bit better because we all knew Barry. He was an offensive defenseman, and the Leafs just don't need another offensive defenseman. Um, so I'm gonna address those needs today. I might address the needs in terms of grit, I'd say as well. But yeah, we'll get right into it. Alright, so the first deal I have happening involves Dermott actually. I think, honestly, at this point, if Dubas can get Dermott signed, I honestly think the best way to go with him is just trading him. We simply have too many left-handed defenders. We need space for Sandin. It's up to Keefe if he's gonna play him on the right side at this point. It really sucks to say, but he's 24. I think there is untapped potential, and I think a great place for him to go would be Detroit. Although the team's bad, he can definitely get more playing time there than he can in Toronto, and I think a second round pick is fair enough now, and it frees up an extra 2 million in cap space that's so desperately needed, and that I think can be used towards a guy like Radko Gudas or something along those lines. Alright, so the next deal I have Toronto Maple Leafs making is trading Janssen to the Devils for Kevin Ball, a 2021 third rounder, 2021 fourth rounder, and a 2020 seventh rounder. This trade, I'd say, acts as a more cap dump. Janssen's had injury troubles. He's 25. He has hit 20 goals, which I think you play him with a guy like Hughes, who personally I think is going to have a great year next year. Who knows what can happen, but he's just. I just think with Robertson emerging in the playoffs, and a hopeful emergence of Korshkov, I hope. Um, I think we can afford to move on from a guy like Janssen, and getting a guy like Kevin Ball, who if I'm not mistaken, is a right-handed defender who they got in the Taylor Hall trade. I think he'd be a pretty good prospect to have for the Leafs. He kind of plays the style they need, and a couple of picks. Honestly, I think it's not a terrible trade, but I don't think we should. If Janssen does get dealt, I don't think we should expect a deal like the Kapanen one. But yeah. So a couple of signings I have the Leafs making. Obviously Spezza and Kaskisuo. Kaskisuo, there's not much to say. He's just the third string goalie. I don't know if he'll really get any games next year unless Anderson gets injured. But yeah, I just don't see much, I guess, in Kaskisuo right now. I just re-signed him because we need some goalie depth in Toronto. And I have Spezza signing 1 year, 900K deal. It's a slight raise. Leafs could pump up bonuses a little bit, I guess. Um, I think this could be maybe the last year of Spezza unless he shows he can still play. Um, I would like him back. I think he's good for the guys in the room. Um, but besides that, fourth line center could play third line if there's an injury, not consistently though. And yeah, now going on to the next signing, I think Radko Gudas is gonna be probably one of the options the Leafs go after in free agency. Um, Plays exactly the way they need it to. And honestly, if you're gonna get grit on your team, I'd say get in the back end where you already need better defenders. You can kill two birds with one stone with Radko Gudas. He does go overboard. He does go overboard every now and then, but regardless, I think he can still play great for the Leafs. He'd be exactly what we need, and yeah, I think he'd be great with us. In terms of cap hit, it is an interesting one because he could get very overpaid. Um, Dubas could just come out and do the Dubas thing and just completely front load the contract with signing bonuses. But I think honestly, probably a respectable cap hit would be somewhere in probably the 2,700,000 to 2,900,000 or 3 million range. So I'll give him like 295 uh, cap hit. That's probably fair, I'd say. And in terms of contract length, you'll probably get a 2 or 3 year deal. I'd prefer 2 year, so I'll put two since this is my ideal uh, Leaf situation. Alright, so another guy I'm signing, it's a pretty bad kept secret at this point that Simmons would like to come to Toronto, I'd think. I'd love him in Toronto. I'm already loving this fourth line of Barabanov, Spezza, and Simmons. I think this could be a great fourth line come next year. You get Barabanov, who, although he is unknown, if he doesn't pan out, you have a nice Yegor Korshkov who's ready, makes the same amount. It's free money here with Barabanov. Who knows? He could be Mikheyev. He could be a fourth liner. Nobody knows. But yeah. Now we all know the rumors, and personally, I don't think it's gonna happen. I don't think Anderson gets traded. If I'm gonna be honest, if he does get traded, it's gonna be at the trade deadline, honestly. But personally, I would not mind seeing Anderson get traded, not even for a goalie back, because there's a lot of goalies in free agency that the Leafs could pursue. I have one in mind, and I will show you guys that later, but I will figure out an Anderson trade first. I do want to point out one thing. Milan Lucic is interesting because I do think, in real life, obviously, Calgary, I think, is going to buy him out personally to save some cap space so that they can pursue Markstrom. If Lucic does hit free agency, the Leafs should be first in line for this guy. Get him at like 800K, maybe even league min. Who knows at this point? You can get him on this fourth line. You can get him over Simmons at this point. I don't even care. He'd be perfect. All right. I already know this trade is going to be very controversial, but it is sort of, I guess, from a position of strength. Uh, the Leafs could give up Anderson. Uh, Carolina Hurricanes, they have a surplus of defenders. They have a lot of options. Pesci is obviously one of their better ones and is severely underrated defensively. One of the best in the league defensively. but I think the Leafs could make a serious trade with Carolina, especially involving Anderson, because he they obviously need a elite goaltender. That's the last I think they need for them to be a top contender. Um, Now in this trade, I have the Leafs giving up Anderson, Mikhail Abramov, who did have a pretty good year in the. He had a pretty good year this year. Decently underrated prospect, I'd say, along with Abruzzi. He had 76 points in 63 games with the Victoriaville Tigers in the QMJHL. He was a fourth round pick last year. He's 19. It was only his draft plus 1 year. Um, yeah, I think he was the leading scorer on the team this year as well. So I think he's a pretty underrated prospect. He's a center. I also have them Leafs giving up Dennis Malgin, 23. He had like a Nick Patan like run honestly with the Leafs last year. We got him in a pretty weird trade, and he just didn't really show up, to be honest. I think throw him on Carolina, see what happens. He's an RFA. I'd say they probably get him signed for relatively cheap. And then I have the Leafs also giving up Adam Brooks. He's 24, if I'm not. I think he's 23 or 24. He had 3 assists, 7 games with the Leafs this year. Pretty good year in the AHL as well. He'd probably be a dark horse at a training camp to make the lineup. I think Brooks is also a very pretty underrated player. He'd be great for Carolina, I'd say, and they bought him 6 this year. And then I have them giving up the second round pick. Yeah, I think this could be a very interesting trade. Yeah, leave your thoughts in the comments below. I definitely think this could be a decent starting point, but if I'm being realistic, the Leafs will obviously have to give up more. I'm just saying this is probably fair value and what would be ideal for the Leafs, but obviously for Pesci, they'd have to give up a lot more. And with that, the Leafs have about 1.5 million in cap space, which you can go and pursue someone else, and you get Pesci in your lineup. You could take out Hall, trade him. You have that flexibility now. You have Morgan Riley, Brett Pesci. Actually, you know what? Might as well throw Hall in a trade. You don't need him if you have all those guys. What team needs defense? Let's just throw him to Ottawa. Let's throw him to Ottawa for like a fourth and a fifth. Sure. There, perfect. All right, there. Now you get rid of Justin Hall. You have 3 million in cap space. You could go after a third line winger if you're not ready for. Actually, you know what? Goaltending. You still need a goaltender. Anyways, I will address that. Now that right side is entirely different. Pesci, Letton, and Gudis. I'm much more confident in this than I was in CC, Barry, and Hall. This is much better, much more defensively sound lineup, I'd say. A lot more. You get more grit too in the lineup. You have Simmons and Gudis along with Muzzin, who they're all gritty. They're all gonna help you out in terms of getting in the corners. Even Korshkov, he's a big boy. He can help out with that as well. And to address the goaltending, I have an idea. I don't know how popular this opinion might be, but I think you bring in Cam Talbot for 2 years, $4 million. You load him up with signing bonuses, and it could work out pretty well. I think a tandem of Talbot and Campbell could honestly work just as good as Anderson and Campbell, to be honest. If you don't end up trading Anderson, you might not actually get Pesci. You can adjust some things, obviously, but I think getting Talbot on the squad at only $4 million for 2 years, he showed this year that he could definitely platoon. I'd say he'd probably get a few more games than he did this year, but I think Talbot could work great. It is obviously a risk. He's 33, contract goes until he's 35. Um, he's on the older side. You don't really know with goalies what can happen. He's also been up and down in terms of his performance, but I don't think it's a bad idea to go after a guy like Talbot. There's obviously other options. There's guys like Kudobin. You could even, if you really want to, go after Markstrom, but you probably don't get Gudis or Simmons. So there's all those other things. But the goalie market's very rich this year. Even a guy like Reimer, if you trade with Carolina again, maybe you get Reimer back in the Anderson deal. Who knows? Um, there's a lot of options for goaltending, but I think Cam Talbot is a very good one. And with that, I'd say this is probably your ideal or your most realistic Toronto Maple Leafs going into next year. Just about 200K in cap space. Um, in terms of forwards, not much has changed. You obviously bring in Simmons, Kapanen and Janssen are both gone. You bring in Barabanov, who is honestly an X factor. He could either perform really well, like Mikheyev, or not perform very well. Hopefully, he performs well. But yeah, the top six doesn't change at all. But your bottom six is a little bit different. I want Kerfoot to stay, to be honest. He showed in the Columbus series that he definitely has more to give. And he started to penalty kill, looked dangerous on the penalty kill as well. I think 3.5 now is much better for Kerfoot than it looked when the season ended. Um, but yeah, you have Simmons on the fourth line. I've talked about him a lot this video. I think he's a great fit for the Leafs. Bring back Spezza for a raise. If you go down to the defense, though, it is completely different. You have Riley, Muzzin, Sandin, Pesci, Lettinen, Gudis. That's honestly kind of scary. Not scary, but it's a definitely improved defense than last year. If you don't want to go trade for a guy like Pesci, I'd say probably the best option would be to go after a guy like Tanev. Even Vatanen, I'd like a lot as a Leaf. He probably wouldn't be the best fit in terms of defensively, but I think he'd still be good with the Leafs. But probably Tanev would be my other option for the Leafs. But yeah, I'd say this is a great, not a great, but this is definitely a good defensive core on paper. We don't know about performance. Talbot and Campbell, which is definitely an experiment. I will not deny that. This is definitely gonna be an interesting tandem. That's for sure. Could either go really bad or could go pretty good. I'd hope it goes good. Talbot showed that he can still be a good goaltender for at least a couple more years. 2 years of 4 million, I think, is a good contract. Campbell could go 25, 30 games. I think this could be a good tandem here. But yeah, that's my ideal lineup. And thank you all for watching. I think I'm gonna start trying to take the channel in more of a hockey directed, more of a hockey direction. I'm very passionate about hockey, obviously. I'll still do gaming videos with my friends and whatever of Among Us and stuff like that, but I think majority of the content on this channel is going to be about hockey from now on. I love talking about it, love hearing other people talk about it, and yeah, I think it'll be good for the channel. But yeah, I want to thank you all for watching. If you liked it, click like, and if you want to stick around for more, click subscribe so you don't miss a thing. And I'll see you all in the next one.